Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Career Reset podcast. So, this is absolutely crazy to me that I will actually keep up with my goal to publish a podcast a week. And so far in January, every single week, every single Tuesday or Wednesday, a new episode has come out. So now I'm in the momentum. I want to keep going. And here I am recording another episode. I hope that today the episode didn't start from editing Carolina from the future explaining some kind of a technical issue. I have triple checked everything. I hope this time I don't have this microphone here, even though I'm actually recording from my MacBook. Actually, let me check one more time. Yes, the microphone should be in use. And today we will talk about my favorite topic. If you have followed me for a while, you might think that my favorite topic is networking because I talk about it a lot. But in fact, my favorite topic is LinkedIn, and specifically being active on LinkedIn, because if there is one thing that I did that made the biggest difference to my career, to my business, it has 100% been LinkedIn. That is where I have found all of my clients, where even bigger clients contacted me directly because they saw that I am active. That's where I have found most of my jobs, either through being directly contacted on LinkedIn or through seeing a job ad and applying to it. It's a free platform and I just love LinkedIn. And it is for many people the missing piece in their job searching and career strategy in general. And I was just listening to some podcast and they were talking about some entrepreneur that they looked up on LinkedIn, and they were just talking that, oh my God, you went to LinkedIn. That is like the worst place in the world. And I find it really interesting why poor LinkedIn has this reputation because, okay, it's a social media platform and it comes with its challenges or with its negatives. But if I compare that to, let's say, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever. Most of these platforms, I don't even have a profile. I have a profile on Facebook and Instagram, but I only go there for a very specific purpose. And always when I go there, I think, oh my God, this is a place where I do not want to spend any of my time. It is extremely cringe, confusing. I feel like you have no control of the content you see. You're fed a lot of things you didn't subscribe or followed, but on LinkedIn, I see people who I actually follow. Then I see a few ads here and there, but not very often. And then I see some posts that people who I follow liked or something like that. And usually that actually introduces me to more relevant people who I want to follow. But it does not happen to me that I would scroll through LinkedIn and I would think, where did this come from? This is very random. I think that that's a place where you are still much more in control of what you see. And I don't think that LinkedIn is a nice place to scroll to in your free time, but I don't believe any social media is a place where you should scroll in your free time. You should do other things. And I myself, I am guilty. I spend too much time on my phone, but actually, despite being extremely active on LinkedIn and despite it being like the biggest part of my business and my career, I don't even have the app on my phone. So I only access it through my browser. And I don't go there in the evenings or weekends at all. Or recently I was on a 2-week vacation, and for the whole 2 weeks I did not go to LinkedIn at all. So that is just a bit of a defense from my side against the, I think, unjustified hate that LinkedIn gets. And I know that in the past, when I originally joined it in like 2016, 2017, it was a different place. I think that now LinkedIn is becoming much more authentic, sometimes even to a point where it's a lot about people's personal lives, and it's fine. Everybody has the right to share whatever content then they want, and I have the right to follow the content that interests me. And for me, a very personal content that is only related to somebody's family life is not relevant, so I don't follow these people. But I'm not gonna give any kind of negativity for that people are sharing that. I personally think it's a good thing that now there is more authenticity and more talking about like real life, real work, at least from the people who I follow. And at least my clients are pretty sold on LinkedIn. I make sure they are, and they are aware of the benefits. But for example, with my friends, they often tell me that, oh my God, how can you post so much? LinkedIn is such a horrible place. Or I have one friend in particular, he's my childhood friend, and he every other week he sends me some posts on LinkedIn that he saw, and he says, look, Carolina, it's so cringe. LinkedIn is such a bad place. And then at the same time, he says, my colleague is leaving because he got some job through LinkedIn. And I'm a much better worker than him. Why did he get contacted on LinkedIn? And I say, well, yeah, because his profile was probably better. So I know that LinkedIn can be a very debated topic, and I am on the side of it is a very, very powerful tool, and I have so many examples of being active on LinkedIn bringing very tangible results to your career, but it is your choice. In the end, if you don't like LinkedIn, don't be there. It's as simple as that. But I feel like a lot of people are somewhere in the middle where they kind of hate that platform but kind of want the benefits from that platform. And that's impossible. You can be one or the other. For example, for me, I really hate job applying. I think it's an extremely ineffective way to find a job. So if I was now looking for a job, I would not go that path. I would focus on networking and LinkedIn. That is my choice. But if you want to go only through job applying, that is also completely fine, that is a way to secure a job. But in my experience, it is very ineffective. The amount of time and energy you need to put into job applying versus the result is very uneven, versus the amount and energy you need to put into being active on LinkedIn versus the result, completely different ratio. So if you are someone who is absolutely not sold on the idea of LinkedIn and you want to leave that platform, then this is maybe not the podcast for you. But if you are someone who is curious, and especially if you are someone who is very actively looking for a new job, you are sending applications, maybe you are also networking and you just don't see any results and you're thinking, what else can I do? Then being active on LinkedIn could be the answer. I'm spending quite a lot of time here talking about the why, and that's also what I do with my clients. When someone hires me as their coach, I don't tell them, okay, here is a to-do list for you to start being active on LinkedIn. So you're gonna start posting 3 times a week. This will be the topics. This is how long the post will be. Thank you and goodbye. Because I know that would not be very effective career coaching. I always ask that what is the starting position. I tell them that in this session, we're going to explore if being active on LinkedIn could be an interesting part of your job search strategy. And then I ask, what is your starting point? When I say this, what comes up in terms of your thoughts and feelings? Some people are like, yeah, let's do it. And some people are like, I don't know, Carolina, I really think it's not going to work out. I have nothing to say. Everybody is posting on LinkedIn nowadays. I will not be even seen. I will just put a lot of effort and energy into it and it's going to turn into nothing. And often, most common answer clients give me is, that is something I have considered and I can see that that is probably the direction I should go, but I don't know how. But the real question people are actually asking is not really how to be active. When you go to LinkedIn, at the top, there is quite a big section that says like add a post or something, and that's how you are active on LinkedIn. But the question is really, how do I approach it in a way that it brings me results? And that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode, because I think nowadays I don't need to explain to people that it's important to have a good profile on LinkedIn. That has been established. In Finland, LinkedIn is huge. In many European countries, LinkedIn is very, very important platform to be on. And of course, it all starts with overall existing on that platform and having a good profile, clear, that includes relevant information that is not all over the place. That is a topic for a different discussion. But actually a very important part of your profile is your activity. And when I say being active on LinkedIn and your activity, what I mean is basically creating content for LinkedIn, posting, sharing your experience, your insights, and so on. And if you go to your profile and you scroll from the top, you will maybe be surprised how big part your activity plays. So you will see first your picture, then you will see your headline, then you will see your about section, and then you will see your activities. So a preview of your most recent posts, or if you don't post at all, of your comments. And if you don't post or comment, then it just says activity and there is nothing, it's empty. And only then will you see your work experience. And naturally, the higher something is on your profile, the less someone needs to scroll, the more it will stay on their mind. For example, often my clients stress a lot about recommendations on LinkedIn, that they do or do not have recommendations and that the recommendations are good or bad. But in reality, the recommendations on a profile live at the very, very bottom. So somebody would need to be very dedicated to getting to know you, to scroll all the way to the bottom, to see the recommendations and read them. And most probably, if they haven't found anything interesting in your about section, in your activity and in your experience, they are just gonna leave your profile and go to some other profile. When I was a recruiter, I would look at the recommendations, but it was, I think, never the case that the recommendation would be a decisive factor. It was more like I saw something very relevant already in the about an experience section, and then just out of curiosity I looked at the recommendations, but it wasn't like, okay, nothing I have seen so far is relevant to what I'm looking for, but let's check the recommendation, maybe that will change my mind. But in the eyes of LinkedIn, it's a platform, it's a social media platform. They want that people are active, they want that people create content so that it keeps the visitors on that platform engaged, so that they spend time there and they see things they like, and that keeps them coming back. So LinkedIn as a platform, as an algorithm, likes active people. Also, as in on any social media, there are fake profiles on LinkedIn, and it's quite easy to spot that if someone has, for example, a lot of connections and is active, then that is clearly a real valid profile, and it's not some fake profile. So LinkedIn will push and prefer the active profile in terms of if it shows it to potential recruiters or just people in general. So if you don't even have a profile picture on your LinkedIn profile, if it's half empty and you don't even have description to your work experience, you just list the company and the job title, then that is of course what you should start with a good, strong profile. But I believe a lot of my listeners are more advanced users of LinkedIn. Their profile is in an okay condition, and it's maybe the activity that is lacking. So the way to think of it is that all the posts and also all the comments that you write on LinkedIn, it's part of, let's say, your portfolio. It lives on your profile, and for anyone who comes there, they can see it, they can see what you talk about, how often you're active, what kind of things you comment on, and it can make a big difference in terms of how your profile is perceived. Because it is one thing to say, for example, in your about section, passionate about employee experience, or I am highly interested in using AI in digital marketing. You know, that's just a phrase, a sentence that you're saying, but it's a very different thing if then a potential visitor or recruiter sees your activity section and they see, okay, this person is posting every week about their insights on employee experience. They share articles with their own insights on AI in digital marketing. They are really serious, and as a recruiter, that really made a difference. If I found a profile of a person who was sharing about the things that interested them, was actively engaging with others, then it was a no-brainer to contact them, because they were, in my eyes, much more trustworthy. They clearly stood out of the others, and of course they had to have a relevant experience. It's not about that person had 0 years of experience, but then when I had which often happens in this job market, when you have 50 people that are equally qualified to a job, then you are looking for things that makes them stand out. And passion and curiosity about the field is one of the decisive factors nowadays in recruitment processes. And one way to demonstrate that is not to say, I am passionate and curious, because we can say a lot of things without them being necessarily true, but you need to show it. And by posting on LinkedIn, that is one way that you very clearly demonstrate it, especially, for example, if you are unemployed and you have potentially a lot of time. And then if you dedicate a portion of this time towards building your visibility, posting on LinkedIn, then that can quite clearly set you apart from other job seekers. And that builds more trust in you actually having the skills you're saying you have, and also having the interest you are saying you have. So if we are talking only about recruitments, there are real tangible benefits how it will make your profile more attractive if you are posting, if you're active. And I really like the idea of thinking of your LinkedIn activity as a portfolio, because that is something I discuss quite often, let's say when I work with designers or even project managers, with people who can have some portfolio of projects they have worked on. In any kind of job, you can create a sort of a portfolio, but sometimes it's hard to think how you could describe it. Maybe your work is not very clearly quantifiable, or it's not split in projects. But then one way you can think about it is to document your work, document your day-to-day in an online portfolio on LinkedIn. You don't need to create any specific website or blog or anything. You can just use what you already have and build your LinkedIn activity and approach it as a portfolio that documents your experience and your insights on a particular topic in your field. So if right now your activity is empty, you have kind of nothing to show. But the good thing is that you can start today. You don't need any fancy setup. I'm gonna get to more practical tips towards the end of the episode. But you know this podcast, I like to talk it through and first just get you thinking about the topic and think about what would be the right approach for you. Why does it make sense for you specifically? Because I can tell you in 5 minutes, okay, this is how you post on LinkedIn. But if you are not sold on the idea, if you don't understand what's the purpose, then you're not going to implement that advice. That is something I have learned through my coaching. That's why I do coaching, because I know with lots of these job searching topics, it's just not enough for me to give a to-do list to my clients, even though I could give them very specific and proven advice that do this, it works. But I know it's not that easy. We all know, for example, what is healthy food, how to eat healthy, but maybe we don't necessarily eat healthy. So then it's about understanding the reasons why we eat the way we eat, what we associate with unhealthy eating, what we associate with healthy eating, and finding a path that works for us specifically. How could we eat more healthy? So it's the same with coaching on a job search. I don't say, okay, do this, done, bye. I need to first understand where the clients are at with how they understand the topics, what do they think about these different strategies, what is their goal, and what are their circumstances, and then thinking how could we, considering these circumstances, get them the results they want with the tools that we have available. So that's kind of the first, let's say, set of reasons why being active on LinkedIn is valuable, that activity just sits in your profile and makes your profile more valuable, more interesting, more attractive, and more likely to attract recruiters, and more likely to stand out in a job applying process. But there are lots of other reasons, especially in small job markets, which is the case of Finland. And then if we talk always about a specific city, then that of course is even smaller. And the smaller the job market in which you operate, the more important is to be visible and to be familiar name in that field. In Finland, it's much easier to become the person that people associate with a certain field, with a certain expertise. And that's why when I talk about posting on LinkedIn, I stress the importance of consistency, of doing it repeatedly. it doesn't make sense to spend 1 month coming up with the perfect post and then posting it and then do nothing for 2 months. In terms of what LinkedIn as an algorithm values and in terms of what makes sense for people to remember you, you need to be consistent and you need to show up frequently, not putting so much thought into the individual posts. And there are lots of different benefits that then are associated with being visible, with being a familiar name in relation to a certain area or a certain field. And that's why I mentioned at the start that some people go the path of talking a lot about their personal life, family life, and that can be valuable in terms of visibility, just like building a name, but in terms of becoming someone who is recognized as an expert or qualified in a certain field, that probably does not achieve that goal. And that's a similar thing that I see a lot of job seekers posting a lot about job seeking, which I understand because it's your day-to-day life, so it's the most on your mind, and it's also a topic that usually resonates with other people, so you tend to get good engagement or a lot of sympathy or people who can relate, and that brings a lot of value. But if we talk about, does that kind of activity position you in the mind of potential employers as an expert, as someone they are like, this person, I really resonate with their take on the field. I really resonate with the way they talk. I like that they share trends. I like that they give their prediction on where the field is going to develop. That is exactly someone who we want in our company. And if all you post about is that you're a job seeker and you're unemployed and you're looking for a new job, that will not resonate in the eyes of potential employer because they are not looking to employ a job seeker and they are not in the end that interested how many applications you're sending on a weekly basis. They are interested in who are you, what can you do, can you help us solve our challenges, how can you help us get the most out of the trends that are happening in the world. So if you are someone who is active on LinkedIn, big thumbs up to you. But then if that activity is mainly around your job searching journey, then I just want you to have the information that that is not what employers value. And you are absolutely free to post whatever you want. Of course, as long as you comply with LinkedIn rules and it's nothing like offensive and so on. But you decide what you want to share, but always make sure you like the reasons on which you're basing the decision what you are sharing. I often hear people telling me that they want to raise awareness of what's happening in the job market and that some things are not fair. I think we're all aware, and let's be realistic, a single LinkedIn post drawing attention to, for example, a recruitment situation that did not go fairly or getting ghosted and so on, you posting about it, most likely it's not gonna change anything. What is gonna change something is you getting a job and you making a difference in that job. When you are, not even as recruiter, if you are involved in a recruitment process from the other side, that's when you can change things. That's when you can make sure that everybody gets a fair feedback. You shape the company policy by just being there and with the way you approach your work. But if you are on the outside, if you are a job seeker, let's be real here, your power to change things is very, very small. So it is much more useful using that LinkedIn activity as a tool to position yourself as an expert, to talk about all the things you can do, you have experienced, you have some opinion or insight on, and that will bring much more tangible results to your career. So that was a little bit of an off topic on the topics that I do and do not recommend talking about on LinkedIn if your goal is to get some opportunities, some progression for your career. I had to take a little bit of a break and it seems to be absolutely impossible for me to record the podcast in one go without any technical challenges. But what I'm teaching is consistency over perfection, and that's what I am here not just teaching but also showing in the way I approach my podcast. But if you are watching this on YouTube, then that's just an explanation why it got suddenly dark and why I look more tired than in the previous section. But let's get back to the topic. So I would like to finish up on explaining the benefits. And I just have a couple more points to mention. So there are, of course, practical benefits you can get from the post, like actual results, which come from the visibility, from being more vocal about all the amazing things you can offer to potential employers. And those benefits can, of course, go so far that someone really resonates with your posts to the degree that they contact you and offer you some kind of opportunity. And this might seem very far-fetched, but it has happened to me, it has happened to several of my clients. I'm not saying that you will post like twice and employers will start bombarding your inbox. That is not gonna happen. Let's set the expectations realistic, but if you are consistent with it, it is highly likely. That's why people do it. That's why people post on LinkedIn, because it just works. It does genuinely bring you a lot of benefits. I have seen it for my career, for my business, for my personal life. Like, I have personally only benefited from posting on LinkedIn. I was just recently in the movies with a friend who I met through LinkedIn, who used to react to my posts a lot. And I noticed that, and I was like, hey, let's send him a message and ask who he is, because he knows what I'm all about through this post, but I'm really curious who is this person who keeps reacting to my posts. And then we had an online chat, a virtual coffee, then we met in person, and we've been friends ever since. And that, to me, is definitely worth it, because that has happened with several other people who are now really close friends of mine. So the benefits go beyond your career, but we are here, of course, talking about the careers primarily. But on top of these like concrete benefits that you may see in your career, just the process of regularly showing up and talking about your expertise brings lots of benefits in itself. When I was a job seeker, and I was full-time unemployed job seeker, and my sole focus was supposed to be looking for a job. You know, if you purely rely on job applying, you will go crazy soon enough, because if that's really what you spend your 8 hours a day with, I would not recommend that to anyone. And that doesn't even happen that often from what I hear. For example, here in Finland, if you're unemployed, the unemployment office gives you the task to apply to usually 4 jobs a month, which is, in my opinion, a laughably small number. If you are unemployed and you have nothing else to do than looking for a job, there is much more you can do than applying to 4 jobs in a month. But then that's exactly the question. Okay, I have the capacity to do more, but what should that more be? And people often spend a lot of time on LinkedIn just passively consuming the content, or maybe taking some online courses, which I'm not saying is not valuable, but if people tell me that they can't see the straight link how networking and being active on LinkedIn moves them forward in their career, then I can guarantee you that taking online courses, like, the link is even weaker. Employers simply do not value that very much compared to people who have actual experience. If you are just in the quiet of your home consuming some kind of online course without implementing the learnings, then I would maybe rethink if there are not smarter ways that would more tangibly lead to finding your next employment. So at the most simplest level, posting on LinkedIn is just something you can do, something to fill your time with. And in the current job market, if you're sending applications, most probably most of them are getting rejected, which is annoying and frustrating. But it's not like something's going terribly wrong. It's just common. You need to send quite many applications. We are talking tens or even hundreds in this job market. And it can very much feel like you're spending a lot of time on something that is completely pointless. And that's when, for example, talking about the topics that excite you, that you're passionate about, and through that finding people who think the same or who have some additional insight and who you can have a discussion about the topic, it makes you feel better on the day-to-day basis. So if we set aside any kind of like post on LinkedIn because recruiters will think your profile is more attractive, yes, that matters, but on a more human level, posting on LinkedIn can introduce you to people who have similar interests to you. And there is something actually happening. Somebody is reacting, somebody is commenting. Maybe not right away and maybe not to every post, but even that can feel like you are not just sending these applications and never hear back and never moving forward. And why I specifically recommend talking about the topics that are closely related to your work is because when you are looking for a job, when you're unemployed, obviously you lose touch with your field. And that's why often people who are employed get hired over somebody who is unemployed. When a company is going through applications and interviewing people, it is not that they would by default filter out the unemployed, but the people who are currently working in an interview, usually because they are in a day-to-day touch with the field, they can answer the questions better. When the question in an interview is how do you handle this kind of situation, and for example you handled a situation a year ago, 2 years ago, like a long time ago, or there is a person who deals with that kind of situation on a day-to-day basis, then they can give a better answer, and that's what then moves them forward in the recruitment process. And again, I'm not saying that is fair, and I personally used to be very frustrated about it when I saw that somebody was hired for a job that I applied to and I see that that person was working in that time when they applied and they're switching. But that is the reality. Companies in the private sector are not charities, and they make decisions that make sense to them, and they do not make the decisions on what would be the most fair. But that's why I am giving you this advice that posting on LinkedIn is one way to stay relevant, to stay in touch with your field. Reading what other people are posting and finding relevant people, finding relevant companies and reading what's happening. That is one way, but putting your own thoughts on a virtual paper and formulating your experience, your ideas, your strengths, insights or opinions you have about current trends in the field, that is a very tangible way to actually stay relevant. And then when a potential interview comes along, you will be much better prepared. It will not be so hard, like you need to dig deep in the past to remember what did you actually do when you worked. I have been lately highlighting this a lot to my client, the importance of staying in touch with their field and to stay in touch not just with what's happening and with the information and with the knowledge, but also with the passion, what originally brought them to this field, to these jobs that they are applying to. Because if the only touch you have with your field is looking at job ads and getting rejected, then it's very hard to communicate some kind of passion in your application or in your interview, and that can then cost you the opportunity. I usually recommend to whatever works for you. Read books, read articles, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos. No way is better than the other as long as you actually do it. Passively consuming that content, it is super important, but it's 50% of that. Another 50% is actually formulating your own ideas. Ideally, you combine this. You consume some kind of content related to your field and then you share it with others, and you don't just share it like, hey, here is an interesting article, but you give a little bit more in-depth insight of what exactly in the article was interesting, or what you found valuable about it, how it relates to your experience, how it relates to your prediction about the future. That's the added value. Resharing something that you have read, it's better than nothing. But if we are talking about all the range of benefits I have mentioned here, to actually see them in your own career journey, you need to put a little bit more thought into your posts. And as the last benefit, I would mention that, as I often talk about networking and personal branding, posting on LinkedIn, like those two work best if they are done in collaboration. So posting on LinkedIn can become a really good source of networking. In my online course and to my clients, I teach the approach how to reach out directly. That different stages of networking, and the highest stage, the one that brings most tangible benefits, but is also the hardest to do, is contacting people directly and initiating discussions with them. By that, I do not mean to send messages to recruiters and ask them to employ you, but by that, I mean reaching out to people who are in some way relevant to your field and initiating discussion with them and just trying to get maybe few insights that can move you forward on your journey and seeing where that discussion can go. But I admit that it is really hard to just reach out of the blue to people in your network. So what can remove this initial barrier of you being a random person appearing in somebody's inbox is being someone who posts regularly, and then you start eventually seeing that similar people are reacting to your post, are either reacting or commenting, and so you can assume that these people are starting to be aware with who you are and start to resonate with the content, and that is then much easier to reach out to that person and say, hey, I appreciate your support of my post. I'm actually trying to expand my network and I would like to get to know you better and what work you do. Would you like to grab a virtual coffee with me? Would you like to have a 15-minute chat? Here is my calendar. That is my number one approach that I use for networking that has worked extremely well for me. I was able to find clients, I was able to find friends, I was able to just have insightful discussions, and that is all I was after. I never approached any of these discussions with some side intentions. I just wanted to have a insightful discussion because at that time I was at home. I had nothing to do. I wasn't really meeting people, and I could see that it is not really good for my mental health or for my career. So posting on LinkedIn can be a really good source of valuable professional connections. So that is a wide range of benefits. Nobody listening now can have anything against posting on LinkedIn. It's just really worth it, to summarize it. Now might be a good time to address the question, okay, but how? And as I said, the answer is pretty simple. You open LinkedIn, you start writing a post, and you post it. And I know that people usually want from me some kind of a perfect recipe. What's the best time of the day? What's the best topic? What's the best length? And the answer is that there is no such thing. There are people who post long posts, people who post short posts. As I mentioned, some people post very personal topics, some people post very professional topics, some people use pictures, some don't, some use videos, some don't. People post different time of the day, and everything can work. You just need to make a decision and go with it. All of these decisions can become a very handy source of procrastination, that you first need to get the perfect decision and then you can move forward. Another procrastination source is waiting for the perfect time, which I also hear a lot from my clients, that they tell me now is not a good time because it's Christmas, nobody is on LinkedIn, and now is after Christmas, everybody's busy, and now it's middle of January and it's too cold. I'm a little bit over exaggerating here, but as I mentioned, the benefits are not going to come from one individual post. They're going to come from consistency. So the sooner you start, the better. Even though you might think there might be better time in the future, well, you can post again in the future when that better time comes. And then when it comes to topics, I already gave some suggestions throughout the episode. I would stay on topics that are relevant to your field. If it's your first post or if you haven't posted in a while, it can be a good idea to put some kind of an introductory post. You can share a picture of you and you can say, hey, this is a little bit about me, about my journey, about the topics I'm interested in. This is my ideal next step and so on. Not like kind of open to work post, but just introduction to your network, who you are and making some kind of public commitment that you are planning to post more often. So don't overwhelm yourself, don't make some big promises to yourself going from 0 to 100. If you don't post at all, then start with once a week. Then when it becomes a no-brainer, you can try twice a week, 3 times a week. I now post 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, but it has taken me 2.5 years to get to that point when I didn't need to clear out my whole weekly schedule to come up with that many posts, and when I wasn't freaking out that, oh my god, it's so much and people are gonna hate it. So anything is better than 0. I would set once a week like a minimum commitment. And when it comes to the topics, anything relevant to your field. Maybe you can talk about what are the trends, you can talk about a specific aspect of your experience. If you feel like you really have no ideas what to write about, then I would say you are probably not consuming enough content relevant to your field. And if you don't want to consume any content relevant to your field, then I would say you're in the wrong field, because if nothing about your job excites you, and if you don't want to spend any additional time thinking or learning about the field, it's probably not the right field for you, in which case please reach out to me, and I will be happy to help you discover something that is more relevant to you. But really, it is one good indication that if you have no interest in anything that relates to the area in which you work, then that's a sign that that's something to pay attention to. And I'm not saying that you now have to stop like watching Netflix and you need to only watch educational videos about your field. It's again no 0, no 100. We are somewhere in the middle, and finding some type of content that you resonate with and that gives you ideas that you can then expand upon, and you can think how they relate to your experience and share that. That's a very simple task to do. And you are not writing a book, you are not writing an article for a major newspaper, you're writing a post for social media. So it doesn't need to be very in-depth, it doesn't need to be mind-blowing and changing somebody's lives, just a short snippet, a part of your journey, of your experience, it will be sufficient. And maybe retrospectively, your initial posts are not going to be very good. If you go way back to my first post, they are just not very good, and I'm completely fine with it. It's actually very nice to see how far I've come, but the only reason I've come far and my posts are now, in my opinion, really good. I like my posts, and if we take some metrics of impressions and engagements and comments, my posts are doing very well. But that is not a destination to which I could get by some best practices and theoretical knowledge on how to post. You just have to go through the early phase when you are not really good at it, and at the beginning not many people will even pay attention to your posts. But the faster you start, the faster you will get through this initial phase when it feels kind of messy, when you don't know what you're saying, when you don't know if anybody's interested in what you have to say. And in and of itself, that practice of putting your ideas into words is really valuable and can help you in many areas of your life. And when it comes to confidence, that's another topic I address a lot with my clients. It's usually some kind of a challenge, like I don't have enough expertise and people will think it's stupid and that I'm too junior. And I can give you here permission to post, but you need to give that permission to yourself first of all. Everybody has the right to post on LinkedIn. The platform will become much more valuable if we have diverse voices in terms of your background, but also in terms of your seniority. I would say that it's more common for more senior people to post. But it would be very helpful to also see people who are more junior, to hear their perspective. It can be very valuable to people who are on the same level as you. Point is not that your posts will impress some CEOs. The point is that your post will simply find their audience. And that could be people who are younger, people who are starting out, people who are somewhere in the middle. You really do not need to become a thought leader, but you have something valuable to say. You have a unique perspective that someone out there, out of the hundreds of millions of people who are on LinkedIn, will find interesting. And personally, most people I follow, they are not some top stars in their field. They are just normal people like me who are in some way similar. I follow a lot of internationals in Finland who share also their struggles and wins, which I can relate to. And I really don't care if the posts that I see, if they are from people who have 20 years of experience and awards for top whatever job they do. I am just interested in the fact that is that post interesting? Does it bring some insight to the topics I want to see? And I believe that's what most people on LinkedIn want to see. You could always have more experience, you could always be more qualified, but that would limit the pool of people who are quote unquote allowed to post to a very small pool. And I personally don't want to see that. I have a bit of a selfish reason behind recording this episode, and that is that I would simply love to see more diverse voices on LinkedIn and have my feed filled with people from different corners of the world, different corners of different business areas, different seniorities, and I think that would just make for a more valuable experience for everybody on the platform. But you cannot now sit at home and try to build up your confidence to post. Initially, it will feel physically uncomfortable to press post, and you will frantically check if people are liking your post, and then you will want to delete it if nobody liked it. But the only way to build real confidence is just through doing it. When I started, I always posted before I went to the gym because it was so uncomfortable for me that I just had to have some physical exercise to shake that discomfort from my body. And then while I was at the gym, I didn't allow myself to check if the post got any reactions. And then when I got home, I of course rushed first thing to LinkedIn to see if I had a reaction. And if you go way back in my LinkedIn, you will find posts that have no reactions. I'm not gonna say that that is comfortable, that can feel definitely embarrassing and vulnerable, but that is a very important decision point at which in that situation you need to tell yourself, okay, whatever, I'm gonna post again, because Carolina said the benefits come from consistency, not from an individual post. And I have also shared before on LinkedIn one post that had amazing engagements and reaction. It went almost viral, I would say. And that was a nice ego boost, but in terms of any real benefits, it gave me nothing. It didn't move me forward in my business, in my career, in my life. But then I posted a different post where I talked very specifically about how my free intro sessions work for people who want to hire me as their coach. And that post got 14 likes, which for me is lower than average. But from that one post, I got 4 clients. I think that is the best illustration I can give you, that the engagements and reactions really do not matter. Impressions do not matter. Of course, LinkedIn serves you these numbers, so naturally you look at them and you have some opinion about them. But if you try to zoom out, in practical terms, they are not gonna do much for your career. So I hope this was super inspirational and motivational episode, and that you will go out there and post. And you can send me on LinkedIn a post that you posted after being inspired to do so from this episode, and I can react to it and leave you some nice comment there, or you can even write a post and tag me that I inspired you in this podcast to post. So 100% go for it. Nothing bad can happen from posting on LinkedIn. You can only gain. It's a super valuable thing to do, and the sooner you start, the sooner you will see the benefit. So that's all my thoughts on LinkedIn. Well, I would have much more, because being active on LinkedIn is one of my most favorite topics. Let me know any questions you have about it, and I might record another episode in the future, because I am such a seasoned poster that it's a bit harder for me to relate to what it was like when I was starting, and what was, for example, the information I would have wanted to have. And if you are an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, and you want to use LinkedIn as your marketing channel, then I would invite you to my solo business club, which is my new membership, which I absolutely love creating for. And I post podcasts and videos there, but they are more focused on business, on finding clients, for example, through LinkedIn. I just recorded a video how I find organizational B2B clients through LinkedIn. So if that's something that you would find relevant, join us in the club. I will leave a link in the description box, and I will hear you all in the next episode.